So I just made a ton of back-to-back-to-back bad investments. Opened a restaurant with Michael Giannis.
Yeah.
Lasted 10 months. We lost a ton of money there. Shut that down. So now I'm like, okay, I got to refocus.
Yeah.
I
Let's
really
get back
gotta,
to the core
Like,
principles,
yeah,
the core
this
values.
whole party thing was fun and everything. We had a good time.
Yeah.
Like I bought the house in Dominion. I bought the Lamborghini. I did all the stuff. I had all the cars and everything. And but then it just hit me one day. And I was like, dude, you've got to figure this out. You can't. This is not who you are. First of all, what are you gonna do? Just party your life off the rest of your life? No, you're losing. Everything you built up your entire life is, your trend line is not looking good.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure this out. And so I cut them all off from one day to the next. I literally left like 10 group chats. Everybody, wow, what's going on? You okay? Yeah, I'm cool. I'm good, dude. And I literally from one day to the next, the one thing about me, I can turn things on. I can turn things off really, really quick. As seen by with my parents. I was out of that house and I was done.
Problem,
so,
red alert.
Yeah, that's it. See ya, done. And so I did. I turned it off and I had a come to Jesus moment with Mike. I was like, dude, we got to shut this restaurant down. We're burning through $20K a month. We got to shut it down. So it took us a couple of months. We finally came to terms, shut that down. And then I'm thinking, like, what am I going to do with this?
Welcome back to Always Level Up the podcast. I'm your host, Carlos Garcia. This is my lovely co-host,
Tracy Ross Garcia.
And today we have an amazing guest,
Skylar
Mr.
Moon.
Skylar Moon.
Yeah.
Skylar has a great story, great background. Skylar, for those that don't know, you tell the audience, the world, a little bit about who Skylar Moon is.
You want the full story? You want the elevator pitch real
Man,
quick?
let's go with the elevator pitch right now, and then we'll dive right into the full story.
I am a lifelong entrepreneur who has, for some weird reason, always just been curious how things work and how things work in the background and behind the scenes. And so that's how I'll tell some stories about that when I was a kid. But that's basically me in a nutshell. Done a bunch of different businesses, never had a job in my entire life. I'm going on 34 this year and never had a job. Don't know what it's like to have one, know what it is to create jobs and to manage those people in those jobs, but I've never had one. And so done anything from wireless industry to selling lemonade in a lemonade stand to owning nightclubs to flipping real estate, and here we are.
There you go. Now that right there is a big bundle of stories combined into one.
Yeah.
But I think it's awesome. So let's go back and let's start. You mentioned selling lemonade.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, is that where the entrepreneur
spirit.
mindset kind of kicked off?
So I don't really know where I got it from other than just, I would say, like my dad. So he owned a business. He owned a very small business growing up. He was a wallpaper hanger. So he was the business, right? He was the one actually going out, hanging the paper. Morning, I would say, I don't know what the times were, but call it 7 to 9 a.m. was doing estimates, free estimates. That's how you generate the leads, right? Back then in the 90s and early 2000s when there wasn't Google PPC and all this other stuff, you had to get leads somehow. And so the name goes in the yellow pages it was back then, right?
Yeah, everybody had to use the book.
Yeah, the book. And then he was very good at what we now know as networking. He was very popular with all the local designers in town. So all the big design firms just knew that he was a good worker. And what he would always instill into me, and I just remembered this, was, he would talk to us all the time. First of all, came from a great family. We'd have family dinner every single night, 7 days a week. We all came together and talked about the day, and there was none of this, phones at the table, none of that stuff. And so, I think that's so important because, not very many people do that. One, some people just don't have the opportunity time-wise or whatever it is. But now it's, distractions on TV, phone, Netflix, all the stuff, iPads. And so it was definitely taken advantage of back then. Took it for advantage back then. Didn't appreciate it. As a kid, you want to go play with friends later or whatever, but you had to be at, dinner table, whatever time it was, 7, 8 o'clock, and, Dad would get off work and Mom would have dinner ready and we'd all get together. And so looking back at it now, that is an incredible thing that I definitely want to continue on, whenever I have kids one day. But one of the things he'd always tell us, why do I get all these, why do you think he would ask us questions and engage with us, right? Why do you think I get, all these designers that are referring me versus somebody else? I don't know. I show up on time. I do what I say. All the stuff that's the basic
values.
101 stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Basic 101 core values that a lot of people just don't even think about today. And that's the only job he's ever had in his whole life was his business, really. He worked at a Red Lobster when he was 14 as like a busboy or whatever.
Right.
But then outside of that, when he was 15 years old, he started that business. And he's 62 today, and he actually is just about to exit, about to sell that business.
Wow.
He'll stay on as a board member for the next probably 10 years or so. But he's done that his entire life, right? And so, but it does go back to those core values. I think the reason he was so successful is because, like he said it's basic stuff. People will come and give you an estimate, then change the price, or people will say they're going to be there at a certain time, and they're 30 minutes later, whatever. He said, we will not ever do that. And so I think that's one thing that kept him from growing back then, was because he wanted to make sure that he kept that image, and he was the business. So my mom was the back office. She was going around collecting checks, because back then there was no Zelle and no Cash App and no PayPal, and so you had to collect paper checks, and she'd go to the bank and make the deposits and keep the check log of checks that were written. And so my mom ran the back office, and I was actually homeschooled most of my life, and so I got to see that side of the business being run. And then I'd go to job sites here and there. I hated it. I was not a construction guy as a kid, and so I did not enjoy going. I was forced to go several times, but did not enjoy going.
It's hot.
And it's just, wallpaper is tough, man. You're sanding walls, and you've got. I remember once, I will never forget this. I don't think I've ever told the story.
Get dirty.
Well, I didn't know how to use the shop vac, and so there's a blow and a suck side on the shop vac. Well, I had it on the blow side. I ate like pounds of sawdust or whatever it was, sanding from the walls, and I was sick for I don't know how many days. I got so sick, and I just couldn't eat anything, hold anything down. So anyways, I was not the construction guy.
This is probably a sign that
this guy's a hazard.
Was not a good thing. But anyways, I think that's where I got, going back to the story, I think that's where I got most of my entrepreneurial spirit from, was just seeing them. But as an early on as a kid, my dad would tell this story sometimes, that when we would go to birthday parties, 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, whatever it was, and you'd go to the jumpy houses, moon houses, all the kids rush and get in, they're bouncing, and I would slowly walk around the back of it and see, how the heck is this thing working? Why is it blown up like this? And so I was just always very, very, very curious.
Turn off the switch while everybody's that's what that does.
That's what it does, okay. And so just always a very curious kid. And so 10, 11 years old, doing the lemonade stands, mowing lawns.
And why would you do those things?
See, that's what I don't know. I always liked nice things. This is going to sound really weird. I had a Tag Heuer watch. It was like, I don't know, like a $1,100, $1,200 watch. It's like 12, 13 years old. I just liked nice things. And so, we came from a very like middle class family, nothing crazy, and we lived okay, but wasn't like, balling out or anything. I came from a household of 4 kids. There was a lot of kids to feed, but I don't know. I just had a taste for. I was into golf. I was supposed to be a golfer growing up. I started playing at like 10 years old. Played pretty good up until about 15. Won a few junior PGA tournaments. Traveled around awesome. Doing that. So golf's expensive, and then you hang around people at the golf course, and they've got the nice watches and the cars, and so you kind of caught up in that stuff, right? And so I guess that's. I don't really know. I don't know where the.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a lifestyle that you wanted to live. You knew what you wanted early on. You're like, well, hold on, nobody's going to give this to me.
But I think more than that, it was, because I didn't need to worry. I mean, back then, we'd ask parents for toys, we'd get them whatever. Not to say like we were super spoiled, but like we lived okay, right? And so it wasn't out of like necessity because I needed to buy a new toy or because of whatever. We had chores that we had to do in order to get stuff, and so that was that. But I also, I don't know, I just felt like, especially once I don't know, I wish I remembered what the first thing I ever sold or did was. I have to go back and research that. But once I started, it was like a not a journey, but it was like a mission that, okay, now there's $10 in the bank, 20, 50, 100.
You just wanted to see it grow.
Yeah, I just wanted to see how big I could grow it. And then, because it gives you a sense of accomplishment, especially as a kid too, right? And I was a very nerdy kid. I was a mega introvert, which is super weird, to the point where we would go to lunch after church on a Sunday, and we'd be at the restaurant. My mom would tell me, if you don't order from the waitress, you're just not going to eat till we get home, and you'll eat regular food at home versus eating out. I'd just sit there in the corner, doing my thing, drawing or whatever I was doing. And so just a really, I wouldn't say super weird kid. I had like my couple really close friends. I had like 2 or 3 best friends as kids, as you grow up and move neighborhoods and whatnot. But outside of that, like I was not social at all. I was homeschooled. Even at homeschool, we'd go to once a week to co-op. I would not talk to anybody. Like I always felt pretty out of place. And I think part of that being homeschooled, I highly recommend that for anybody who's looking at homeschooling. Highly recommend it from an education standpoint. You're way better off. And then as a default, I was always hanging around older people. I was with my mom running errands. I was with my, at church or whatever. And so I think my mindset was always and people would tell me that you're 15 going on like 35. You're 12 going on 30 or whatever it was.
Just observing everybody.
Yeah, from them. Exactly. And so and then being around the golf course, I was very dedicated to my golf because I was homeschooled. I'd be done with school by like 9 a.m. It doesn't take that long to get through a whole day's worth of schoolwork whenever you're actually doing schoolwork. Yeah. And so, I'd be done by 9:30, and I'd be on the golf course all day long. So you're around older people, right? And you're taking all that stuff as a young kid. Mm-hmm. And so...
Where on your siblings do you fall?
I've got an older brother, an older sister, myself, and then a younger sister. So I was kind of like right in the middle. Yeah. We're all 2 years apart. So, yeah, it's 2, 2, 2, 2. It's crazy. And then I've got a much younger sister who's 14 right now. But yeah, growing up, it was all four of us. We were right, and nobody was like me. Everybody was, my brother's super outgoing, basketball player. Mm-hmm. My sister was singing in the choir at the church and all this stuff. And, I played the piano at church, but I was just very behind the scenes.
Nice. So you learned the piano as well.
Learned piano from a young age. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I did do the media at the church. So you'd put, the stuff on the screens and the worship music. You put the words that would come up and all that. So I did all that stuff. So we were my parents really pushed us to be involved in a bunch of stuff at a young age, which was great. You get just a ton of life experience, right? Yeah. Which I feel like a lot of people don't do that. Most people's parents nowadays just hand them the iPad and let them kind of, see whatever they discover out there, which is super dangerous.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's next episode.
So, Tracy's definitely been one to push the kids to stay super active, and but that's awesome that your parents have kept you involved in doing things, and especially with the golf. So the golf was just, it's such a fluke thing, man. We lived on where the Woodlake Golf Course is, FM 78, Walsham area. Mm-hmm. So we lived on that golf course. Is it still open?
No, they closed it.
Right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Legendary golf course. They actually played back in the early 1900s. The Texas Open, the Valero Texas Open was played there. So it was like a championship golf course. Obviously over time, it faded or whatever. Mm-hmm. But grew up on that golf course, and my dad played golf, but he worked 6 days a week. His only day off was Sunday. We went to church, went to lunch, and he'd do home chores or whatever. And so he didn't really get to play that much, but he played golf. His family, he came from a family of golfers. His dad played, his brothers played. We all play together now, which is super fun. But I was not interested at all. I was not a sports guy. I've never played any sport ever. Mm-hmm. I can't shoot a basketball. I can't bowl. I can't throw a baseball. I cannot do anything that's athletic. I am like the most least athletic person you'll ever meet in your life, ever. Except for when it comes to golf. I will beat almost anybody when it comes to golf.
That's my jam.
Yeah. And so it was weird. When I first picked up the club, everybody was like, what are you talking about? Because I was not even just, I couldn't play sport. I was like anti-sport. I hated it so bad because I was not good at it.
You're like Happy Gilmore.
Yes, dude. Exactly.
Give him the golf club and just wax it right out the park.
So one day I just took out of my dad's garage. I took, I think, just one single club, and I just walked out there. And when we walked to the course, we were on a par 3, and it's pretty easy. It's like 100-yard par 3, so you can swing, miss, swing, miss, and then I just would do that every day. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, I took one of the neighbor friends. We started doing it, kind of a fun thing, and we'd have to do it at night, obviously, when there's not too many people out there. So as the sun was going down, it was kind of like our nightly thing. That's how it started. And then the marshals would get on me. Hey, y'all can't be out here. You're not paying. You're not members. Whatever. And we just got ran off a few times. Eventually, after just so many times getting run off, they were like, nah, come on, we're going to take you over to the club. So they took me out to the club, kind of got me in trouble, but then I guess the pro took a liking. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I don't know what they said. I think if you scrape the balls off the driving range, a couple times a week, you can come play or whatever. And so I just became, no, honestly. Yeah. And I became really good friends. It was kind of a cool deal. 7 investors, local guys from San Antonio, they actually bought that course. It was run and owned by like a mom and pop, which is super rare. You're not going to find many golf courses where you know every single one of the owners by name. And so I got became very good friends with them. And it didn't take me very long. I became pretty good. Well, then they were like, oh, yeah, you're like the Woodlake protege. You're going to be big one day. And so then they really wanted me to play. So then, I didn't have to work or do anything. They were just basically had a free membership.
How old were you at this age?
I was like 12 years old, wow. 13 years. It's crazy, dude. That's what I'm telling you. Like, I was way above my years.
It sounds like a grown man out here.
Yes.
This kid over here just running the golf course.
It was wild. And so I didn't have to work anymore over there or do any of the chores. And they would I would play every day for free, as many practice buckets I wanted. And I would hit balls. I would pound balls 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, and that was just my thing. And then my parents were super supportive as they saw that I was giving it attention and actually, following through and practicing. We got really good training. They would take me up to Barton Creek in Austin. Right. I went to the Chuck Cook Golf Academy and got lessons from him. And so anyways, got pretty good, put me in some of the junior tours, played in the city championship, got second in the city championship, almost won that, but did really, really well for a while. And so
that power of just like focus and repetition, right? It's what happens when you put your mind to something and you spend time on like perfecting your craft. And the kids these days, It's
If
like
it's not done in 3 seconds, we don't want
I
it.
know if they're not a pro and like practicing once a week, they're done. You know.
Yeah, and that's very similar to what Nafa was saying about. We had another golfer that we were interviewing. Same
Yeah.
type of mindset. Practicing 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, just hitting and hitting.
But the crazy thing is that can be applied to anything in life. If you're a wholesaler and you need a cold call and you're not good at cold calling, just make a ton of calls.
Yeah.
Right.
Review them, analyze, maybe get a coach or a mentor,
All
somebody
techniques.
to critique you. But that's all it is. I mean, anything can be repeated. There's nothing new under the sun, like the saying says, right? It's just a matter of, actually dedicating. And I did this it probably took me probably the first year I was no good, right? And that's sounds like it's not that long of time, but when you're a year every single day, 365, there was no days off. Thanksgiving Day, the course was closed, I was walking out there playing. Christmas Day, the course was closed, I'm out there playing, practicing. So I'm talking like super dedication. If you can find, obviously as an adult that's harder because you can't take off work and do stuff like that, but if you can dedicate yourself to something that many hours a day for that long, I think there's, the 10,000 hour rule or whatever, you can become a master at anything. And so I truly believe in that. And I think that, that's led me up. So golf was a little bit off subject, but
that's important part of the story right there, because the amount of effort and time that you spend doing this, and what I can see here is it's kind of catering to your introvert personality, because you're on the golf and you're alone.
You have to talk to anybody.
Yeah, you're just alone. You're just like, let me just do my thing.
Exactly.
Boom, 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 and just keep hitting.
Exactly. And so I think that's why it fit me so well. Again, I don't know exactly where the drive came from. I don't really know where the discipline or the dedication came from, other than, my folks would teach these things. They would talk to you about these things. But, I was the oddball that would just really run with it.
So I know a little bit about who you are or now and some of your past experience with the club and all that. So it is, right? There's kind of something switched there, right? You went from like introvert, golf, and then at what point was it like, okay,
age 16. Exactly what it was.
Here's where it gets good.
So on top of my golfing career, at the same time, I was 11 years old selling lemonade. And so I was always entrepreneurial. On top of, doing the golf thing, I did have a little bit of a life, and, had friends and whatnot. And so we did lemonade stand, made some money, did that. And then around the same time, like 12 years old, this is probably 2002, 2003. Internet was still very new, right? Computers and all this stuff was super new. Y2K just happened. And eBay was big back then. eBay had actually it wasn't even big. It was just starting back then. It was getting big. And so, again, I don't know where I got this from or how or what, but I got on eBay and I was like, we're buying things off eBay. Somebody's selling things on eBay. And so I started an account. It's still active today, Moon, whatever it is. And I would just advertise to my mom and dad's friends, if you have anything you want me to sell, I'll sell it for you, because nobody knew how to use it. It was brand new, and everybody was just buying off eBay. Nobody was really selling off of it. And so in my first year, I sold around $70,000 worth of just anything from used golf balls, clothes, wedding rings,
Stuff.
Wow.
cable cutters, whatever, and sold about $70,000 worth of stuff. And I took a 10% commission, and so I made $7,000 as like a 12-year-old. And it was just, again,
boom.
Yeah, I was just thinking outside of the box.
If I do this many more times.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's, again, just super nurtured and helped out, for my parents and stuff as a kid. And so that's where the entrepreneurial spirit came into play. And then I won't get too much into the details of it, but at 15 years old, I actually moved out of my home.
Oh, wow.
Because I was 15 going on 40 at the time, apparently.
You guys don't know what you're talking about.
Pretty much, yeah. So the other side of the story is I came from a ridiculously strict Christian home. Yeah. I'm extremely thankful for it now, and I will probably use every single one of the methods that they use with me when I'm a parent one day. But no movies, really, no cable, no radio, no secular music. I've never once heard my mother or my father curse. I never once saw them take a sip of alcohol in my entire childhood. Just like the most, dad volunteer. He was on the board of directors at one of the churches we were at. We were all involved. My sister played drums at the church. My brother played drums for the youth at the church. He was part of the youth ministry after that. I was doing the behind the scenes on the piano and then on the media side. And so we were all just involved. Everybody had to play a role. It's not an option. It's not something you have to choose you want to do. Like, you're getting it. You're going to church. We went Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Sundays. So like 3-4 times a week. We're all super involved. And so it was great. It was awesome. It was, at the time, I wasn't like super into it, but, looking back now, it's very, very, very thankful for that. And so, but as a kid, you know, you want your freedoms, you want to do what you want to do. And so I just wasn't vibing with that. I always tell people, I feel like I was living a double life. I was on the golf course with all these guys that obviously were not Christians, and they were playing golf and doing their thing.
And we're saying bad words.
Yes, all the time, all the time. I learned a few from them. And luckily my parents never heard me slip on any of those. But yeah, you learn that kind of stuff, and you kind of see that side of the lifestyle. And then, you know, you go home and it's like, in jail, you know, watching movies, you're not doing this, not doing that. Anyway, so I did a couple of things that I probably shouldn't have done as a child, and got all my little rights that I did have taken away. My laptop was taken, my cell phone was taken. I was forced to go. I was already homeschooled, forced to go to work with my dad every day just so they can keep an eye on me and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, I decided to move out at the ripe age of 15.
Wow.
And it is a wild, I mean, I try to think back about it sometimes today, and I don't know if I could ever do it again. It was the most unreal thing ever. I was bouncing around from houses for 2-3 months.
How dangerous.
Dude, as a 15-year-old, right?
I mean, just vulnerable as can be.
And it wasn't like my parents just let me go. They were actively searching. Anybody that was like, I tried to go to my grandma's house at first. They were like, no, we're going to put you in jail for harboring a minor. Like, they were not having it. Which, obviously, your kid is 15, right?
Well, there's a lot of consequences from a parent's perspective.
Yes.
Like, they have to make sure you're taken care of.
Exactly.
If you have school regimen, you got to go do those
Well, that's
things,
the thing. I was homeschooled, so I wasn't doing any school. And so it was a while. It was probably a couple months, month or two, where I was just bouncing around, you know, slept on a bus stop or two. And it was the full deal.
Slept on a bus stop or two.
Yeah, on Austin Highway. I don't even forget it. And so
talk about like an experience there.
So going from a very nurtured, you know, nice home, I left. I literally walked out in the middle of the night. It was like 2:30 in the morning. I wrote a note, left it on the counter, left the dog I had, my childhood dog, left, you know, the family, everything I had, and just
it's like a movie.
But had a suitcase on one side. And a bag of golf clubs on the other.
I'm gonna need these.
And I walked for miles, dude. I walked and I got out of there, and it was crazy, crazy story.
So were you missing for that whole month where they couldn't find you?
Well, they found me at my grandmother's house, and they threatened her. And so then I said, I'm not going to do that to you. She's like, I'll go to jail for you. And I was like, appreciate that, but not going to have that happen. So I bounced around for a while. And then eventually, you know, I was in communication with my grandmother. She and I were very close. And so in communication with her, and she was like, dude, I'm going to try to get them to get you into school. And I was like, sure, go for it. I mean, whatever you got to do. And so eventually we kind of reconciled, and they said, hey, it's probably better for him to live with her and go to school versus just, you know, doing whatever he's doing out there.
Out there in the streets, not safe, right?
Exactly. So I ended up eventually moving in with my grandmother. Went to Wagner High School. I had never been to a public school and went straight into Wagner, which was like, talk about culture shock from the kid that's super introverted and like didn't want to talk to anybody.
And grew up on the golf course.
Yes. Super, super different. And so that's where it was a week before my 16th birthday when I moved out. So I was 15 going on 16. And so that's why I said 16 is when I really started to like, I mean, I just had to. I couldn't, you can't move out and not talk to people and, you know, survive and whatever. And so back to the same golf course. My grandmother lived a couple miles up on the other side by the golf course. And so they ended up letting me, this is my first kind of unofficial job, my only unofficial job. They let me mow the grass on the golf course. So they taught me how to use all the machines. So I would cut tee boxes, cut fairways, cut greens, cut the holes in move the hole around every day. And so that's really the only kind of job I had. And the only reason I did that, I didn't want to do that, but the only reason I did that, because I could make way more money doing other stuff. Yeah. But I needed to get out of school for co-op.
Co-op, yeah.
And so they put me as a official employee, and I would get out of school, but instead of going to the golf course to do what I needed to do, I'd go and mow lawns. So I had one of the guys, Larry, what's his last name? Larry something. He let me use his Sears credit card, and I bought a lawnmower and a weed eater, and I would just, in that same neighborhood or around the golf course, I would just mow lawns. And so it was crazy. I was in the vicinity of my folks. I didn't see or talk to any of them for 2 years.
Oh,
From
wow.
16 to 18. Yeah. And so.
And what about your siblings?
None of them. No aunts, no uncles. No, other than my grandmother I live with. I mean, I fell off the face of the earth. Like, I didn't exist for 2 years. And it was, you know, I look back at it now and I really wish I would have done things different. However.
Your poor mom. That's all I can think about.
That's the one reason I wish I would have done things different.
Well, you know, when you're at that age, you're not really thinking about those things.
No, dude. You're so self-absorbed and like.
Well, and it's just not only that. And this is something that I learned. Sure, this is that your brain's not fully developed till about 25 years old. Yeah. So there's just a lot of things that are just not processing. So, you know, that's part of why, you know, we make those kind of decisions. And, you know, I for me as well, I kind of had that experience right around 16, 17, where it's like, all right,
you think you know
I want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, you start getting risky and you think you're untouchable. And so you end up in places that you probably shouldn't be.
Yep.
Doing things you probably shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
But sounds like you've still had good goals and drive. And
I still had I had to have the drive.
Yeah.
So I left that night. I walked out with like 360 something bucks in my pocket.
Yeah.
And then the first day, the sun came up the next day, went to the Cricket Wireless store on Walsham Road, never forget it. Bought a flip phone, USC, whatever it was, and paid the first month. I had like 20 bucks left. I'm like, dude, now what?
this guy's over here, he's managing life better than what most adults can do when he's 16 years old. And you know, we look at this and I hear this story and I think about it. It's like, well, at least he didn't leave home to go and hang out with a bunch of gang members.
No, not at all. No, and I stayed going to church. I ended up at a lot of places I shouldn't have just by default.
Right.
I had to do a lot of things I probably shouldn't have by default for survival. But I stayed true to myself and true to my core that they had,
The values
that they had instilled in me, right? Yeah. And so tried to always do everything as morally and ethically right as I could. But I mean, some situations I had back up against the wall a few times.
And I look at just kind of like life in general at that time, and there's some people that they have all the odds stacked against them, and they go through this life of struggle, and and then you have your story where you're here and you have the support, but there's still a void there, and you don't feel complete, and like you said, you felt trapped, right? And so that leads for a desire for that freedom, right, to express yourself, to learn, and to figure things out and to live life. So, but to still be able to have the mindset of going and saying, okay, I still got work I got to go do.
That's right.
And going and pursuing that with the discipline that you've been
and
taught.
Make something out of yourself, right? Make a name for yourself. And
exactly.
Well, and I can imagine you probably had a little bit, and I wouldn't call it animosity, but maybe it was a little bit there, but a sense of wanting to prove, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I need to prove to them that I can do it better.
So as I was walking out that night, obviously I had written them a letter and left it on the counter, and then as I was walking a couple miles that night, I was making promises to myself, and one of the promises was I will never, ever, ever, and for no reason, like you're 15 years old, who cares? I will never rely on anybody or take assistance from anybody ever again. And I haven't. I made, I told them I was going to prove everybody wrong. Everybody, obviously, you can't make your 15.
Watch
and
me.
so and so again, I don't know where that drive comes from. I don't know where that determination comes from, but that was one of the things I said. And I was actually texting a friend of mine, one of my good childhood friends. We hadn't talked in years, and I had sent him something I saw on TikTok, something super nostalgic. And he was like, "We're so dumb wanting to be grown up. Can't we just go back?"
It's a trap.
I think you had this thing called the Holy Spirit over you.
Yeah, 100%. No doubt about it. No doubt.
So what did the note say?
The ones my parents?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure. I bet you my mom's one of those. She keeps saying. I'm sure she has it. I suppose it's like a life-changing event for her. To go back to, like, I feel really,
I bet
really.
she cried.
Oh, gosh.
Well, it had tears on it. I was crying as I wrote it. I mean, it had tears on it. So I mean, it's tough. I mean, I wanted what I wanted, but at the same time, like, I loved my parents. I was very, very upset. We had several months of pretty hard headbanging for a while. But I loved them, and the crappy part leading up to that is my mom actually had breast cancer when she was 32.
Oh, wow.
And since my dad had to work full time, I was homeschooled. I was the one that took her to all her appointments. And so this had just happened like 8 months before I moved out. So we had just got over the treatment. And so it was very conflicting feelings. Like I really, really loved my parents, but I was really mad at what was going on and really upset with what was going on and really knew that my way was going to be a better way and whatever. So it was very conflicting. So I don't know what the note said. If something, probably something along the lines of it's just something I have to do, and I'll be fine, whatever. But that's a very good question. I'm gonna try to. I want to take a picture of that actually.
We'll dig this thing up.
But yeah, it was a tough one, and my dog. I know it sounds crappy, but as a kid, like
that's your
I had
buddy.
the dog since I was like 6 or 7. So I mean, your whole
best friend.
Yeah, no, it was my dog. It wasn't any of my friend, my siblings'
as a
dog.
parent,
It was my dog.
it's serious. He left his dog behind. This is this is a big deal.
Yeah. And so anyways, that's the start of where the getting out of the introvert came in, because I had to start talking to people and navigating and working things. And then I just became a full-blown hustler. Not even because of
survival mode kicked in.
No, it had to. It had to. And because I wanted to prove everybody wrong. It wasn't just like I didn't even want to just survive. I wanted to thrive mega style my way. And so my last senior year in high school at Wagner, I would go into the golf course from like 3:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. and I would mow the grass so I could be part of the co-op. From 7, whatever, take the bus to the school, go to school from like, I don't know, 8:45, whatever time you clock in, to 10:15, and I'd get out for co-op, go mow lawns the rest of the whole day, and that was my routine every day. And then in summertime, it was just straight lawns all day long whenever I was out. And so that was leading up into my senior year and through my senior year. Somehow along the way in my senior year, I was mowing the lawn for some HOA contract I had. The house had been vacant, lawn was super long, whatever. I ended up borrowing a riding lawnmower for somebody, and I ran over my cell phone. I was like, dude, I just can't catch a break. And so the lady felt super bad. She's like, I'm going to pay for the lawn, and I'm going to give you $200 to go buy a new phone, and I'm going to connect you with this guy that lives in the neighborhood. He actually owns a pocket wireless store, and he'll get you a phone for cheap. I was like, okay, cool. So I met this guy, and he gives me a phone, and everything's good. And I don't know how this happened. He ended up just taking a liking to me. Apparently, I'm like some super likable kid.
You're like, hold on, how old are you? Right? What are you doing?
And so he actually owned a kind of like a makeshift, bootleg, whatever you want to call it, phone store on the west side, Commerce and Guadalupe Street.
Okay, I know
so
exactly
like
where
super,
that's at.
yeah. Pager Hospital. I don't know if you ever saw it. You might have passed by it. And so on my downtime in the afternoon times, he'd drive me over there and kind of show me what he did and how his shop worked. And I wasn't really working for him, but...
Yeah, I think that's probably Commerce and South Zamora. Was it South
That's
Zamora?
where it is. Yeah. That's where it is. Yeah. And so somehow, again, this was like 5 years later, I started going back to my eBay roots, and I started buying refurbished, used phones off of eBay and selling to him for a $10, $15 profit. I wasn't making a lot, but I was like, I'm out here mowing lawns. It takes about an hour and 15 each lawn. It's 115 degrees outside, having to push this thing around, buy gas, do all this stuff, deal with these customers that are angry all the time, and I'm making $30 because that was the going rate back then, was $30 for a lawn. Or I just buy this thing off eBay, have it shipped to my house, drive it to this guy, and make $15. Like, I can do that over and over again, many times.
In the air condition.
Yeah, and so I ended up. So then my hustle was golf course early in the morning, 3:30 to 7, school, mow lawns, sun goes down, take my phones from eBay to this guy's shop and help him push phones. Yeah. And so that's how I got into the wireless industry, which again is like the most insane way to get in there from mowing a lawn.
Yeah.
And then,
like what are the chances?
So that's in like 2006, 7. By 2000, fast forward super fast, I'll come back. But 2018, I was a Sprint retailer for their prepaid division, Boost Mobile, and I had opened up 42 stores doing $22.5 million in sales a year with an organization of over 180 employees. No partners, no private money, no bank loans, no nothing. All just from those next 10 years of just bootstrapping it for 10 years.
Dude,
so
that is awesome. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a wild story.
You know, I think you're probably walking around just doing math in your head all day. It's like, all right, 1 + 1, 2.
Yes.
All right, I got this. Let's go.
Speaking of that, my brain is like, I don't know, it works so weird. And ever since, more so now that I've been in business for a while, but even like I said, younger and as I started business, I mean, I'm just, every restaurant I go into, I'm thinking about how I'm looking at things, how's this set up and what's going on. Every airport, I mean, anything that has any kind of, any business to it at all, I'm trying to figure out and reverse engineer, okay, how much is that? What's their margin?
What's
how
their
does
system?
That, where do they order from? And who, like, all that kind of stuff. My mind is just constantly,
The wheels are turning.
all the time. Yeah.
Well, and I think the curiosity is the main part right here because I remember speaking to one of my investors that I work with, and we're at Toastmasters, and he gave a speech, and in his speech he talks about tinkering with things, and he says, you know, if you want to learn and grow, you have to experiment, you have to tinker around with things, and that just expands on your curiosity and just opens up the doors of, you know, what's possible. And I think so because you have that curiosity and you're always like exploring, okay, well, what's next? What else can I do? Or how does this work? And then you find something that becomes, you know, like this aha moment, and you're like, oh, well, I can do this with this. And it turns into either a career path or an opportunity or whatever it may look like. And I think that curiosity is what creates the opportunities. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that because I didn't look for the phone industry, and I ended up building a huge business out of it, right? I didn't look for the nightlife, and I ended up making a very good business out of that. And so I think it's just by putting yourself out there, not being scared, staying curious, and then having a lot of the other stuff, having discipline, having, you know,
Well, the work ethic is a big part of it because a lot of people, I mean, miss that
I don't know
part.
any 17-year-olds that are waking up and to be somewhere at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Shoot, I thought 4 a.m. was the magic number.
Yeah, crazy.
3 a.m., I mean, this guy's over here getting up, mowing lawns before he even has to go to school, goes to school, gets out of school, goes back to work, you know, and just on.
It was for like 2 years, and it was just, I mean, it was draining. And the crazy thing, kind of off subject again. So I was still living at my grandmother's house at that time. I hadn't seen either my mother or my father or anybody for 2 years. I was so exhausted. It was in the middle of summer, and I was super exhausted from doing all that. And so I went home to take like a quick hour nap or whatever for my next gig. And I wake up, and my mom's sitting on the foot of my bed. I'm like, it's a dream.
Am I dreaming?
No, seriously. And so I won't get too much in that story. But anyway, her and my dad were getting divorced after like 21 years.
Oh, no.
And so it ended up being the best thing for both of them. But yeah, that's how we ended up rekindling the relationships. I became, friends with her again. It was very weird. It was like starting a relationship. Now, I'm 18 at this point, so now I'm like an adult. Yeah, giving her all what had happened the last 2 years, and then I ended up reaching out to and it was very strange. I don't know why. I mean, because I hadn't talked to them in a couple years, and obviously we left on pretty bad terms. But I mean, I just started bawling as soon as she told me. I felt so bad for both of them, and then I immediately thought about my dad and what was he up to. So I ended up calling him, and then we rekindled our relationship. And it took a couple years. Not gonna lie, it took a couple years. But I mean, we ended up. I have the best relationship with. I mean, my dad and I golf as much as we can together now. We'll go on golf trips together. Me and my mom. They both live here in town, and I see them all the time. We'll go to church together, and like it's just been quite the full circle moment.
Yeah.
We have a very, very, very deep, good relationship, and I don't know if it would have happened had I have not done. So it's very weird. It's a weird thing. It's something that I would not. I don't think I would ever do that again to them because. I can only imagine.
Is you can't.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, exactly.
That time is gone.
And I think also another just a talking point as far as a learning experience is that as parents, right? We might have parents listening to this, but we try to get it right. We try so hard to be the best parents for our kids, but our kids are their own selves.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and they did what they could by leaving the values with you, right. and I'm sure your mom was a praying mom and just prayed for your safety, for all these things, for.
Not only did she would have the entire house full of like half the church congregation there, from what I heard later on.
Yes, no doubt, and I'm sure that was that led you to be able to have this peace and have the safety to chase after those things. But again, parenting is so hard. Being a parent is hard, and I have a handful of children, and they're all different. Yeah. And we try to adapt and to just fill them out and see what works for them. But at the end of the day, you are your own person, and we all have to experience a form of struggle, no matter if you come from a silver spoon family, middle class, like struggling and get your back against the wall. There's going to be a struggle for anybody, and it's really a matter of who you are to push past it and how many times you actually get back up.
Yep, that's right.
Absolutely. So as you've gone through this journey so far, I mean, a lot has happened. And
I've lived like 45 lives already.
How old were you at this time? Like you already scaled up this phone store operation.
So I graduated when I was 18. I had just got back, like I said, talking to my folks again. So there's a lot going on. I'm graduated high school now. Just had seen them, trying to work that relationship, I'm still going to be independent. Like it's going to be a relationship we're going to have, but it's going to be, at somewhat of a distance till we get to learn to trust each other again and what the boundaries are. So I was going through all that, and I had, thank God, finally dropped the lawn mowing thing. I was making enough money doing cell phones and whatnot, all kind of electronics. I was selling iPods, I was selling phones, used phones, taking trade-ins. So all of that started on, fast forward from eBay now, 2000 and whatever it is, 8, Craigslist. Craigslist is where it's all at. Craigslist is the hot thing. There's still no, Facebook's very new. There's no marketplace. Instagram's not even out yet. But it was the biggest cycle in the wireless industry of all time. Everybody had flip phones and dumb phones, and we're cycling up to smartphones, right? Whether it was a BlackBerry, whether it was the new iPhone, or whatever it was. And so it was a cycle where you had tens of millions of people across the country that were cycling through. So it was a great time, And again, I didn't plan any of this. I just ran over my phone. I just needed to figure out how to make a side hustle, right? And so
he runs over his phone, and it turns into a business.
Huge business. And so I graduated in June of 2009. And by November, I'd opened up my first store. Mm-hmm. Totally a God thing again, because I was 18, no credit, no paper, no money on paper, right? It was all just cash stuff that I was doing. No cosigner or nothing. And I found a shopping center off of Walsham and 35. The HEB's out on Walsham?
Yeah.
There's like a really crappy shopping center right behind there.
Okay.
It's like falling apart.
Yep.
And somehow or another, I saw the number on the door. This little 18-year-old kid goes to the plaza they're at, talks to the owner, and it's like a nice formal company. Like there was 3 or 4 people in the meeting. It wasn't just like some old guy that you met. Like it was a formal company. And hey, I want you to lease me this space. Okay, and what are you gonna do? I'm gonna do a phone store. Okay, well, what's your business plan? Oh, I don't have one. How much money do you have? I got enough to cover the rent. Okay, well, do you have pay stubs? No, I don't have a job. You have credit? I don't know. Check it. I don't know. I don't even know how to work at this point, right?
I don't know. I do what I say I'm going to do.
Right? And so from a commercial leasing standpoint, you know how it is. It's pretty difficult to get a commercial lease, especially as a kid like that. They were like, okay, well, the space is really run down. It's only like 700 square feet. I think the rent was like $650 a month. We'll give you a 6-month lease. And I said, okay, cool. Are y'all going to fix it up? No, that's not how this works. You fix it up. I'm like, okay. Well, how am I going to be paying rent if I got to fix it up? We'll give you some rent abatement. Okay, how does that work? Well, basically, out of your 6-month term, 3 months are going to be free. So now I'm incentivized to go get this thing built in 2 weeks, so I got the next 2.5 months for free. And so that's what I did. A buddy of mine, we went to that same Home Depot on Walsham Road, rented the tools we needed, and banged it out, painted it, did everything we needed, and it was called Moon Mobile. It was the first little store, right? And had the most cheesy looking place you could imagine. We put the old school slat walls on the walls, so there's accessories all over the place, and bought the 2 little glass counters, and had the phone sitting in there, and I made so much money out of that place. It is unreal. It was, because you were it's like a used car salesman. We were taking in old phones that people didn't want to trade for their new ones. And so we'd give him, I literally remember, I felt bad. I gave this kid like $10 for his phone, and I sold it for $400 the same day.
Wow.
Because it was a Verizon phone. I unlocked it, put on Cricket. People on Cricket couldn't get Verizon, blah, blah, blah. And so it was just a huge cash business. We'd do that all day, unlocking iPhones. So I don't know if you remember, when the iPhone first came out, you could only use it on AT&T. It had an exclusive for like 3 or 4 years. And so we would jailbreak and unlock them so people on T-Mobile could use them, people on Cricket could use them, whatever. We would make like $250 per unlock, and your cost was zero. You bought the software one time for like $100, and your cost was zero. And so, again, I don't know how I learned any of this crap. I don't know how I even got into it. I just was, I was motivated. I was dedicated to making something out of myself.
Finding a way.
Yeah, I was. And again, this is back in a time when there's no like YouTube
there's no AI.
and, there's no AI. There's like barely internet. I mean, there was internet back then, but it wasn't like sophisticated like it was today. There's no Uber to help you get around. I am probably I'm aging myself here, probably one of the last people that took buses everywhere back then because I didn't have a car, right? And so took buses all over the place, walked a ton, got tons of steps in. And so anyway, so I built that business. I'm 18 now at this point. This is November 2009. I start this business.
All right, guys, he's 18 years old, and he already has a business going. Just
by luck and by default, man. Goodness.
Take note.
And like I said, I shouldn't even be able to rent that place, right?
Yeah.
It all came together and was doing really well there. And then one day, a rep from one of the distribution companies comes in and says, hey, do you want to sell Boost Mobile? I'm like, what is that? The chirp? I was like, no, actually, I don't know what that is. What is that? And so he's like, okay, let me show you what it does. And the only thing that enticed me is like, you make XYZ amount of dollars just by taking the payment. So somebody comes in, makes a $100 payment, you keep $15 out of that. I was like, to do what? Just to go deposit in the bank. I was like, sign me up. So I get signed up, start taking a bunch of payments, and they said, hey, we're about to deactivate, just like 2-3 months later, we're about to deactivate your account. Why? And I was making good money. I did not want to lose the account. They're like, well, because you haven't sold any phones yet. I was like, I didn't know I had to do that. Just thought I was taking payments for you guys. No, dude, you got to hit a minimum of like 2 phones a month. That's it. So figured out how to do that.
Say less.
Yes. So I basically bought them, and I will always remember this. Albert Trevino is the guy that got me signed up. I sold the phone. This guy opens it, starts me. He's like, dude, you can't even make a call. It doesn't work. I'm like, what is this phone you sold me, dude? It doesn't even work. And he's like, well, did you program it? I don't know. What is that? Go to this setting, go to here. You had to like provision the phone over the air. So I got a provision, it worked, and that was my first phone I sold with Boost. And I knew
about
nothing. I knew nothing about any of this stuff. I was literally
That's weird. I thought you just chirp.
I was literally winging it this entire time, and it worked out right. And so, anyways, fast forward another year from now. I've been in that business for about a year. The corporate folks, for some reason, took a liking to me again. I don't know why. Everybody just
that's that common theme
Skylar.
there.
They're impressed. Like, this kid makes money. All right, I like you.
And so they said, hey, we're starting up our exclusive program. We want you to turn this store into an exclusive Boost store. And I said, you are crazy. I make like $250 per phone selling a used phone. I make $10 a phone selling your phone. There's no way I'm going to make up the volume. They said, okay, cool. Why don't you do a second store?
Okay.
So I opened up a store on Babcock and 410, right on the corner, right up the road from here. And it was stupid expensive, and I didn't make any money. Actually, but going back to my drive, I opened up 2 more stores. So I had a total of 3 stores, and I was still losing money on all 3 of them. And for some reason, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. And I was like bootstrapped. I had like 1 employee, poor person working like all day, every day, no lunch breaks, no like nothing. And I was like, how the heck can I figure this out? And there's all these other people making it. So anyways, I just, I played with the formula and switched things up and switched advertising. And I ended up figuring it out. And like I said, I went from 0 to 42 stores with those guys over a 10-year career. And that was a long, what
was the secret sauce? Do you remember?
Just getting better at sales. I didn't take any classes. I literally I would be on the sales floor and I'd figure out, okay, what did I say to make this work? And again, it was definitely a God thing because I was an introvert. I never took any classes. I didn't like talking to people. And somehow I was like the most natural salesperson you ever have. And when I went back years and years later, fast forward like 5 years, I'd get professional sales classes. Now at this point, Boost is taking me to these places, giving me like people to train me so I can train my team. And I'm like, I already know all this stuff. Be personable. Ask questions about nothing has to do with the phone. Ask about their lifestyle. And I was just
building
for
relationship.
some reason, I was just good at doing that already. And I don't know if it's just from having lived with my folks who were good at doing that or whatever. But I just became really good at sales, and then I would teach my people to do that, and our numbers just went crazy.
Yeah, and I think on top of that is you were very knowledgeable.
Yeah,
you have a lot of experience. You're very knowledgeable. You're very curious. So it's easy for you to talk about the things that you know.
Yeah.
And then spark up a conversation.
Exactly.
And I think that's what people...
And I always treated my employees really well. They did work hard. And like I said, we were under some wonky conditions with like no lunch breaks and stuff like that. But, I'd let them...
I'll make it up to you one way or another.
They'd bring their lunch there. And, if there was a customer in front, I wouldn't like freak out on them. Sometimes some of our girls would even have to like bring their kids to work. I was like, hey, as long as they're in the back. So we just we bootlegged it, Yeah. And so grew that business, ended up opening up... I was like the poster child for that business. I was actually on their website for a long time as like the poster kid. If you want to open up a franchise, like I was the guy that they'd have go to. I was on all their advocate programs, meaning like whenever new devices were going to come out, they'd fly me to Kansas City and hey, this device is coming out in a year from now. Which one do you think we should go with? I was on every trial program. I was on the network team, making sure, doing network tests out in South Texas whenever they were launching.
Oh, you were the golden child.
I was the golden. I have pictures with like all the executives from Sprint and everybody. And I was like, I got flown out all the time to different events and different places and speaking engagements. And then I was speaking in front of 500 people.
Right.
And, so that's where I got a lot of my, and I was so red and nervous, but after I did it 1 or 2 times, it's like, I'm just talking to my peers, right? And so.
And I can see how just the work ethic has just created so much opportunity. That's
the one key thing.
Yeah, the willingness to just work and do things and things that matter.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times people don't see that. Right. Most people are looking forward to their vacation or their time off or their break, and you're like, no.
What is this vacation you speak of?
Hold on,
what lunch break?
We got work to do.
Yeah, it was a grind.
Here's a Snickers. That's right. Have at it.
It was a grind from sun up to sundown, and I was blessed with, I guess it left me now, but I had the Trump gene, where I could sleep 3 hours a night, and I was like gold all day long. I would go to bed at 3 a.m., wake up at 6:37, and I would just be, and
ready.
People would tell me, dude, you need to get more sleep. I'm like, I try, I just don't need it. Like, I'm just wired. I was naturally like wired all the time. Now I need at least 7 hours.
Things change when you get
yes, dude.
Over 30.
That's exactly when it changed, right at that age. Exactly. But yeah, it was a great career. Really enjoyed it with those guys. And then towards the end of the career, 2018, 19, it was my peak of my career, top line wise, sales wise, but our bottom line kept shrinking because of the T-Mobile Sprint merger. And so, now I'm starting to think, well, shoot, I don't have any college. I'm not going back to mowing lawns. And I don't really know anything other than the cell phone game. The game is getting very, you don't want to be in the wireless business. I would not recommend
saturated.
But way oversaturated. And when carriers need to make more money, it's easy for them to squeeze the retailer. And so we got squeezed all the time. And so I was already looking at getting out. And what's it called? I was actually on one of my road tours with them. They had me going across the country, meeting different vendors. I was in New York City. I was 6 days away from getting locked down in COVID. I was stuck, almost got stuck in New York.
Oh, wow.
And so it was February of 2020, flew back, and I was like, dude, this business is already crap. If they lock all this stuff down and nobody can walk into your 42 stores that all have rents, insurances, employees, all this stuff, you're going to be up a major creek. And so I said, I've got to get rid of this business. And so I went on another tour trying to find a buyer ASAP because I did not want to get stuck in this.
You saw the writing on the wall. You're like, hey, all right, I better make a move now.
And so I did. I found a buyer out of Houston. He was a ex-cricket guy that they kind of outlawed him for whatever reason. They banned him from cricket. I don't know what the reason was. And he was just starting off. He had like 1 or 2 stores with booths, but he had a ton of money. He had hotel chains and other stuff. And I was like, okay, got it. And so I said, hey, why don't you buy all my stores outside of San Antonio? I had McAllen, Laredo, Del Rio, Eagle Pass. So I said, all the ones outside of San Antonio, and then I'll give you, he didn't know this at the time, but all my underperforming stores in San Antonio. So I kept 14 out of the 42 doors. I kept 14 of all my strongest stores. So I think I actually was ended up making almost more money with way less footprint, right? And so that happened. We closed June of 2020. So just a couple months later, it was a really, really fast thing. Way undersold. It's fine. I did not care.
That was just kind of coming out of the lockdown, right?
Barely at it. No, I want to say we were still in lockdown, weren't we? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we were still in lockdown until the following year. And I'll tell you why. That's the story that goes with that. I think they were just barely starting to lock down because it came in of November 19. February of that year is whenever they had like the first case here in BAMC or whatever.
Oh, you know what I was thinking is that's when they allowed the essentials.
Yes. We were essential. We had all of our little cars. Everybody had their phones or whatever. So all of our employees had to have like these little special cars they went to work with. It was crazy times. We had to outfit all the stores with the spacing and all that stuff. So anyways, June 2020, June 1st, signed the deal. And I knew the deal was going to go through, so in May, I bought a boat and a jet ski. I was like, dude, I'm about to just have so much fun with it. And it was a 7-figure exit, almost a multiple set, like close to $2 million. And I really didn't have any bills at that point. I was like, this is one thing, too, on top of all the other weird things I did, I lived way below my means for a long time. I didn't buy my first I wanted a Rolex since I was 11 when I got that Tag Heuer. I didn't buy it till after I sold my business. When I'm like, at this point I'm 28, 29. I could have done it many times over, but I was very, very financially disciplined. I still lived in a small apartment. I had a $500 car payment. I was not balling out by any means. And so I sold the business and I was like, I'm going to ball out. I'm going to buy a boat. I bought like an $8,000 jet ski and a boat on payments of like $400 a month. And that was my balling out. And
that's probably more than you were used to spending.
Oh yeah, sure. No, for sure. And so, because even like all my traveling and stuff, I didn't pay for anything. They would always, when we go on trips, they paid for all my trips. All my hotels were covered, all my travel, my food, everything was covered. So I really didn't have to spend a ton of money. And I won't get into this story, but in 2017, I almost lost that whole bit. I was a week away from not making payroll, which would have spiraled everything. We'll talk about that on another episode. But dug myself out of that really quick. And then turned the business around. The next year we had our best business and ended up exiting 2 years later. So this is June of 2020, had the boat and stuff, and I told my team, y'all used to manage 42 stores, you got 14.
Y'all got it.
I literally did nothing but log in once a week to make payroll, and that was it. Like I told them, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm done with this business. Like we're going to end up selling off the rest of the stores, and we ended up closing a couple of them, and then over the next 2 years, sold them all. So by 2022, I was completely out of that business. But was on the boat from June, July, August, September, October. And now it's cold and you can't go on the lake anymore. And it's the last week of October, right around this time actually, 2020. And I'm with a buddy of mine. We're working out at Lifetime. I'm like, dude, we got to do something. I can't just I have all this money in the bank. This is not me just to screw around and not do anything. I've got to do something.
Yeah, something's tugging at your coattails saying, hey, it's time to get back to work.
Yep. And I was doing some day trading. I was doing well with that, but I needed to do something. I needed
a
business. Yeah, I needed a business, dude. I couldn't just be retired at 28 or whatever. And so, plus money can spend quick. So you need to have something. And so, should we do a restaurant? No, that's no good. Should we do a car lot? Yeah. What about a bar or nightclub? My friend says. And me, when I have an idea, do not give me any ideas. Please don't give me ideas because
we're doing it.
Then that night we left Lifetime and drove downtown because all the spaces on the Riverwalk were empty. And so we're calling numbers the next day. I've got all this experience. I know how to do, dude. I can handle leases and landlords. I've done this 40, 50 times already. I've got this. I've dealt with JLL at the malls. I can deal with any landlord you give me. And so we started to talk. I started negotiating all this stuff. And then I'm like, I don't really do this by myself. So I started calling. I had some friends in the industry. Justin, who owns Hills and Dales, called him. Y'all want to partner on something? No, we don't want to partner. Called another buddy of mine. He used to work at Club Rio. He's a general manager. Hey, you want to do something? No, I don't do anything. He ends up calling me back I was on the Stairmaster. He calls me back at Lifetime a couple days later. And he says, I don't want to partner with you. However, I have a club that just shut down during COVID. We're going to reopen it. You want to come invest? Sure. So I go look at it, walk in it, invest with them. and it was the worst investment of my life. I actually broke even, so it wasn't that bad, but just the people were no good. But one of the partners there, the first day they come to introduce me, there were 7 other partners. So he pays his Skylar, here's what he does, here's his history, blah, blah, blah. He just wants to learn the business. Cool. So then I met one of the other partners, and we would, for some reason, hit it off, took a liking. And we went to Starbucks that same day right after the meeting, and he's got my whole story, to do the whole spiel like I just did. And I was like, yeah, my goal is to learn enough from this partnership that I can go open my own one day. He's like, you want your own? I was like, yeah. He's like, I can get you one. I was like, say less. What you got? Yeah, say less. Same day, we leave the Starbucks, drive to the shopping center right there on 1604, the Ridge Shopping Center, 2-story, burn house, lush rooftop, 2 clubs. Same guy owns both of them. And he says, I'm going to get David to sell you lush. I was like, dude, that's an iconic spot. I don't know if you know much about it. You know, it was Ivy Rooftop at first. Like, it's been a bunch of iconic spots here. I was like, dude, that's an iconic spot. I've only been once. I was not a night guy. I was not a drinking guy.
I might have had a few nights.
Yeah, it was not my scene at all. And so, but I wanted to learn. And so I'm in this partnership. He introduced me to this guy. I told you, this is like, we were thinking about it the last week of October. I signed the deal to buy it December 2nd. I mean, I moved like that. And
which, again, that is a habit of success, right? Is to be quick to, I mean, yes, and I know for a fact I am a slow decision maker. My husband is faster at making decisions for me. And so being able to find that balance. But if you can not drag your feet, right? And then you can fail a little bit quicker, maybe. You just learn, right? And you know that, like, it's not like I can't reverse it.
For me, it was a safe bet, right? I wasn't doing anything reckless. I had around $2 million-ish in the bank. I had almost no bills. And I mean, in my residual, I had a big investment I had made too in some commercial real estate. I had like $15K a month coming in residual and with the boost store. So I had like nothing to worry about. Money, right? And so I basically took the place over for free. It was $142,000, and I didn't pay a penny to the guy. I only paid his vendors. State of Texas for taxes that were owed, the landlord back rent, the liquor vendors and stuff like that. It's like, I'll pay all your bills up. I'm not going to write you a single check. I wrote all his vendors the checks to make sure nothing funny went on. And so I took it over. He hands me the keys. He's like, okay, what do you want me to tell the staff for Friday? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're going to open Friday, right? I was like, no, dude, I'm closing this thing down. I'm redoing everything. And so go back to my kind of boots on the ground, figuring everything out on my own. I didn't hire any designers. I didn't hire nobody. I mean, me and my buddy literally just looked up stuff on Google and different. I started to then go out to a couple clubs to try to get, ideas.
See what you like,
yeah. And put a team together in a matter of 4 months. December 2nd we signed. April 7th we opened. So in 4 months, figured this thing out, we got all the videos, gutted the whole place out, relocated everything, moved the DJ booth, moved the lights, moved this, moved the bar. And we opened up 2 weeks after Governor Abbott. That's why I remember it was the opening. He opened it up like right at the end of March. 2 weeks after that, we opened up and purposely marketed it as a college club because UTSA is right there.
Right.
And crushed it. I know everybody who's owned that space before me and blew all the numbers out of the water. I mean, it was an insane. On a Wednesday night, we were doing like 25, 30 grand on a Wednesday.
And do you think it is because you niched it down to
I think there was a lot of pent-up demand. I think that we made it a very, very nice. It was a very, timing was, I can't take credit for that, but timing was very good. People had money from stimulus. People's parents had money from stimulus. And there's also a time, I don't know if you remember, people were making buku money on NFTs and Bitcoins. And dude, yes. I mean, people were just, I mean, you would see kids come in there spending $2 grand, $3 grand, like nothing. It's crazy. And, I had a very, very, very good team that was able to, one of the girls was she was the president of all the sororities, I think it is. I never went to college, so I don't know any of these terms.
One of those organizations.
One of those things. And so she was real good at getting the sororities and fraternities to come out. And then I just worked. I mean, I knew nothing about, again, I didn't go to college. I didn't know anything about college, but I knew we were going to be a college club because I figured college kids like to drink. I've seen it on TV or whatever. And so just common sense. A lot of the stuff is just common sense stuff. And so I knew my bet was not very big in the consideration of like all the, my experience. I know how to deal with landlords and stuff. Okay, cool. I know how to deal with tax departments. I know how to deal with all the stuff that goes into this. I can figure out these pieces. I know how to hire people. I know how to manage teams. I know how to put the right people in place. And if they're not in place, I know how to fire fast. So I had all the tools that I felt like I needed to come in here and make it successful. And then I knew how to because my mind is always thinking about how things work. I knew how to analyze the business and figure out where the profit centers were. And so one thing that we did that nobody had done up until that point was we charged minors $30 to get in.
Oh, yeah.
And people used to do it for free so the club would look packed. I'm like, no, dude, they'll pay you whatever. They'd pay you $100 to get in here if you wanted to, because it's like,
they're like, put the X's on my hands, I'll come right in.
Well, yeah, because you market it as the hottest place in town, and you actually fulfill. So my budget was, I bought the place for 140, and my all in, I wanted to be in at 250, so I had like 110 to play with. I went up to 860. At this point, I'm like, oh, shoot, I went a little bit over where I needed to be at. But I wanted to make sure, as part of me, I always wanted to make sure that everything was top notch. I wasn't trying to cut corners. I knew that the business was, I don't even know how I knew, but for some reason I just knew like this was going to pop off. I know what kind of business this is.
Applied faith, brother.
I mean, for whatever reason.
You just knew it. Blind faith. You're just seeing
that, and I think that everything I had touched up till then had done well. So I'm just like, I'm kind of riding on a little bit of a high. Like I did have a lot of faith in myself just because I had proven to myself from 15 up until now that, you can do a lot of crazy stuff.
You did a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah. And so
it worked.
I hadn't even got into it, but I've done real estate on the side. Meantime, throughout the whole stuff, I had opened up different food trucks. I've done a lot of different things. And so I figured, okay, cool, you got this. So opened it up, major success. Within 7 months, had that entire $860K investment back as net. Like it wasn't just in sales. Like we had netted it all back in 7-8 months, which is insane.
That's awesome.
So did that for a couple years, and this is the only time in my life I got a little bit lost in the sauce. I was still going to CBC, here and there, not very frequent, but still here and there. But I did get lost in the sauce, and not necessarily because the drinking part, but the ego part. Oh my gosh, everybody loves you. You are everybody's best friend.
Yeah, you're the man.
And especially when you start shelling out. I mean, I was spending an ungodly amount of money on just flying people out. Oh, we're all 10 of us want to go to Vegas for this weekend and spend $20,000 at a table. Cool. All your flights are taken care of, all your rooms. I mean, you can get a lot of friends that way, right? Oh, yeah. And so coming from, I think, if I have to go back and analyze it, from being this introvert that really never had many friends, never partied, never went through that scene, was the most disciplined guy you ever met who, I missed funerals, weddings, anything. I mean, I was just in my thing. I was married and divorced in that whole time. Never even talked about that yet because of working so much. And so from a guy who just sacrificed literally his entire life.
Didn't get any action in the story.
It's
not that interesting.
Don't worry, I was working all the time.
Basically, that's kind of the gist of it. And so, from a guy who had sacrificed his entire life to now being the man, if you will, that's really kind of what got me. And then I fell into drinking and, whatever. And
yeah, that opens up a whole nother can of worms.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so,
but I guess,
still trying to be true to myself. Like I said, still praying, still going to church, but obviously, what you're doing is not.
You're out of alignment here.
Yes.
It's crazy how there's just in these different chapters of our lives, there's just so many different lessons to learn, and there's different challenges that are waiting for us.
Yep.
And but one thing I can see that contributes to, your success and your drive is applying these two principles. One is organized thinking, because you're organizing your thoughts and you're compartmentalizing. I always mess up that word. Your thoughts, and you're like, okay, this is what I need, and that's like a superpower.
Yeah.
And then the other part,
especially nowadays with
dude, it's a superpower.
Yeah. And our attention span is short. Yeah.
And then the second one, which is also a superpower, is concentrated effort. Concentration, like focusing on one thing at a time, getting it done, and just like dialing in and going on. And like, so when you have a vision, you have a goal, you're like, boom.
It's funny you mentioned that because I lost all my concentration.
At what point?
Alcohol will do that to you.
So we opened April of 2020. I was very disciplined the first 6 months or so because I wanted to make sure that this thing was going to go off, and it went off like better than I expected. To be honest with you, it went off better than I expected. I had big goals, and it went off better than I thought. And come February, I remember because it was my birthday of that following year is when I really started to have friends and like they want to start going places. And we started, I'll put it out there. Some people know this. I spent $87,000 in one night at Excess Nightclub in Las Vegas on my birthday that year in cash. I walked in.
I can see that.
With a $20,000 outfit, the jewelry, the Gucci, the whatever, Prada, had the backpack on. Backpack's got $100K in cash in it, and they're like, "Sir, you can't bring that backpack in here." I opened it up. I said, "Okay, well, how am I going to spend this?"
Come on in.
Yeah,
we got a section for
the
you.
back door.
Exactly. And so, everybody was just like, "Oh my God, this guy is so crazy, so cool." And so that's when it really all started. And then I just basically, we were making, I don't want to say how much, but we were making a ton of money. And then I had other investments and stuff coming in. And so I got really reckless. So that directed, concentrated effort really just went out the window. I started investing in like Amazon, FBA stores, lost them a lot of money doing that. Any kind of like online guru business, I invested in that kind of stuff, lost in that. I invested a lot of money in a commercial developer here in town. His whole business went under. He literally filed bankruptcy, and so I lost a lot of that. So I just made a ton of back-to-back-to-back bad investments. Opened a restaurant with Michael Giannis.
Yeah.
Lasted 10 months. We lost a ton of money there. Shut that down. So now I'm like, okay, I got to refocus.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the core principles.
Yeah,
core
this
values.
whole party thing was fun and everything. We had a good time. Like I bought the house in Dominion. I bought the Lamborghini. I did all the stuff. I had like, all the cars and everything. But then it just hit me one day, and I was like, dude, you've got to figure this out. You can't. This is not who you are, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? Just party your life off the rest of your life? No. You're losing, everything you built up your entire life is, your trend line is not looking good.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure this out. And so I cut them all off from one day to the next. I literally left like 10 group chats. Everybody, wow, what's going on, UK? Yeah, I'm cool, I'm good, dude. And I literally from one day to the next, the one thing about me, I can turn things on, I can turn things off really, really quick. As seen by like with my parents. I was out of that house and I was done.
Problem, red alert.
Yeah, that's it. See ya, done. And so I did. I turned it off, and I had a come to Jesus moment with Mike. I was like, dude, we got to shut this restaurant down. We're burning through $20K a month. We got to shut it down. So it took us a couple of months. We finally came to terms, shut that down, and then I'm thinking, like, what am I going to do with this club? Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's still going. It wasn't as strong by that point, but, it was still strong. It was still doing its thing. And again, no college to fall back on. I'm not going back to the wireless industry, nothing. So I'm like, all right, let's figure this out again. It's back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
And I really started getting more connected back in the church and faith, and connected with Ryan Pineda. And he's obviously, his whole thing is, business, but also doing it in a spiritual way. And so I was just around a lot more different people, the right people.
Right.
And so I really, really, really paid hard. And I said, God, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. Give me a sign. Like this is like one point I've never asked for a sign. I need a sign. Like I need something. Like figure out if this business is not what I'm supposed to be doing, which I know it's not. Show me, right? 1604 closes because they're about to do the construction for the next 4 years. I was like, yep, that's the sign. Got it. Noted. And so it was our biggest show to date. It was July 28th of whatever year it was, 22, 23 or whatever. And we brought Sean Kingston in, paid a bunch of money, and that was the first night they shut the highway down. And so I'm like, dude, you got to be kidding me. We couldn't. I think we might have barely broke even that night, but it should have been like a home run night. And almost every weekend after that, they would only if you've noticed, they shut down Fridays and Saturday nights only.
Yep.
I'm like, dude, can y'all not shut down like Monday to Wednesday or something? And
Give me a break.
It was, and so I knew. Like, it was fine. I didn't fight it. I was upset, obviously, but like, it is what it is, right? Everything's got to come to an end. But it was just insult to injury. We went from cash flowing net of about $125,000 a month to negative cash flowing like $40,000 a month. That is a insane swing.
Oof.
And so, with no backup plan, with nothing to do.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, step one is you got to sell it. You got to sell everything, first of all. I sold my house in Dominion, sold the Lamborghini, sold everything. I said, I'm just going to go back to square one, start this all over again. So that's what I did. Sold all that stuff, and to cut down the bills and make sure that you stop the bleeding. And then I marketed the club to sell it. But my problem was they didn't tell me this. My landlord, my lease was not due until June of this year, 25. Well, they were like, you need to give us like a year early notice to renew. I'm like, dude, what? I was like, you got to get, this was June of last year. I said, you got to give me like 3 months. I can work magic with 3 months. Give me 3 months. And so sure enough, I found a guy, super undersold the place, but it's fine. The roads were closed, stuff was going on, whatever. But it was going to get, it was a deal's a deal, and it's going to get me out of this thing, and it'll give me enough money to figure out what I want to do next. And so I'm like right at the finish line, and the landlord's like, it's a guy from Mexico. He owns like 5 clubs down there. Very nice, not older, but older gentleman, and business guy, not anything crazy. But I called the landlord, like, no, we're not going to approve your sale. What are you talking about? Come on, guy from Mexico, club owner, definitely not like clean money. I'm like, dude, check whatever you want to check. I swear to you, the guy's like clean. So anyways, we got it across the line, and but now I'm stuck in the same situation. I don't know what to do. So this was September of last year. It's only been a year. And I put a video out on Instagram because I had a lot of people following me from the club. And I was like, hey, just want to thank everybody for the support over the years. The club has officially been sold. It's in good hands, blah, blah, whatever the video said. And popped off. Ryan Pineda sees it. He texts me on my phone. He's like, hey, bro, saw your video. Congrats. what's next? Great question. So I kind of ran through a short bit of the story about, where I was at faith-wise and what was going on. He's like, come out to Vegas. Let's get you plugged in real estate. Cool. Obviously, I knew Michael. Me and Michael had the restaurant together. We had done a lot of other stuff together. And so obviously I was kind of leaning towards that, but just didn't know what I wanted to do. Went out to go see Ryan, and he got me to do a little bit of wholesaling through his lead kitchen, whatever he was doing. And kind of wasn't my thing, especially. My thing was like, hey, my best friend at the time, Mike, that's what his business is. I'm not really trying to like overtake his business.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to step on toes, but I do need to find something to do. And so I came back from that meeting, talked to Mike. I was like, hey, let's figure something out. Like, here's what he's having me do. It's like inbound leads. Y'all are doing outbound. It's kind of different, but, I really don't want to, Mike was an open book. He's like, dude, let's figure out a way to like work together. Like, whatever you want to do, let's do something. And so again, just like with running over the phone with phone with the lawnmower and got into the phone business, that's kind of, I just fell into this real estate thing. Mike and I met through my club. He actually brought me a contract for Waka Flocka. It was the biggest night to date we ever had. And we became best friends that way. We've gone through very highs and pretty low lows with that restaurant and other stuff. And we've never raised voice with each other, never had even a disagreement. We agree on everything. A lot of it sucks, but he is my boy, ride or die to the end of times. And and so we said, hey, what are we going to do? Let's focus on fix and flip. I don't really do much fix and flip anymore. He would tell me he used to do it way back in the day. I hope obviously if you got the leads, I'm the one selling you the house. We'll partner and we'll do stuff. And so it's been a year of fixing and flipping, and we've, the goal, it was just a dumb thing. We were in the office one day. It was the first house I was buying, and the camera guy, Don, his camera guy, was like, hey, so what's the storyline going to be? I was like, I'm going to flip 50 houses this year. I was like, okay, cool, run with that. So I put it on my Instagram, started making videos about it. I don't know if I'm going to flip 50 houses or not, but that's going to be the storyline, right? So it got people intrigued, and it got the story going, and everybody would come up to me like, oh, you're going to do 50 this year? Yeah, brother, we're going to do 50, whatever. We ended up doing like 26 or so.
All right.
Market's super soft. And if you look back, fast forward 3 years from now, and you look back at this year, you're going to be like, and that year you did that many? Because this is like the worst year to start real estate, right?
That's a challenge.
And I didn't even really notice. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't even think about it until like really a couple months ago. I was like, dude, most people can't flip their first house in a year, 2 houses. We just did 26 houses in the worst year that the market's seen since probably 2008 or whatever, right?
Learned so many lessons from that.
But again, it was just, I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't looking at, obviously you got to look at macro to a certain extent, but there's transactions moving. You've seen it, you know what's going on. And so, and I knew I was in good hands with him, with Ryan, with all the people that I've, met over the years, all the experience I've built up. And even though it seems like I had been making irrational decisions, I was back on my, I'd been in church. Actually, I'm the one who took Mike to CBC. And so, we had been going to CBC. I really, 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 for the first time in my life, was doing Bible in a year. Last year I had a lot of time on my hands because I was getting into flipping, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I was taking 2-hour runs every day, outside, no music, no nothing.
You're reconnecting with yourself, really.
Yeah, with myself and with God, right? I really, really, I learned, I think, I'm still learning, but learned how to pray, I guess, the right way. I guess there's not really a right way, but like
just to get into prayer as a habit is
as a habit, and I went back to being disciplined with that. I had always been disciplined with other things in my life, and I would go to church, but I wasn't really disciplined with the actual
the practicing of your faith.
Practicing of the faith, but then also, I think we've talked about this a couple times in the Bible study, really, truly letting go. It's one thing to say, I'm going to sell everything I need to cut the bleeding. It's another thing to say, I'm going to sell everything to cut the bleeding, but also to show that I'm not anything. Right? I've gone through this whole...
It's a form of humility, right?
That's exactly what it was.
The die to yourself thing.
It was exactly that. And so...
That's big. That's big. A lot of people don't want to do that.
I mean, and that's another one of my little superpowers, I guess, is I came from a very humble place, sleeping on bus stops, and I like nice things. Obviously, I've had a very weird relationship with things over my lifetime career, but I'm not, I don't need those things. Whereas in the past, I felt like I needed to show who I was. I needed to show, especially when I made the wrong
your identity, right? Your identity starts getting twisted up into that. Now, this is who people think I am. Now I have to really show up as that person because then who am I, right? And then this is dying to self is like, well, God created who I am, right? And let me get in touch with that person and really show up as that person.
And I really, really believe, so fast forward even to just like 2 months ago, I've never met Reese in my life, the guy from the Bible study.
Okay.
And I guess he followed Mike and myself online. And he's the one who told Ian. I'd never met Ian in my life. I didn't know who Ian was until probably 2 months ago. And so Ian hits me up, I think on Instagram, or however he reached out to me. And he's like, hey, Reese, this guy that knows you, sent me. I was like, who's this Reese guy? I was like, oh, what? And he's like, you want to co-host a Bible study with me? And normally I would have said no. However, I have been, really asking. Well, I've been in my walk, but I've really been asking God, what in the heck is all this about? This is the most insane freaking story you could ever have made, for anybody. Like, it is a wild, because we've touched on probably 10% of it. Yeah. It is an insane life that I've been through. And what in the world is all this about, right? And so in my personal life, with my relationship with my girlfriend, we are both on kind of the same journey at the same time. We actually met at my club. She was one of our bartenders there. And the transformation, if we look at each other and we're like, it's amazing we still like each other, because we're not even close to who we were back then, right? And her transformation is incredible. My transformation's been incredible. And there's a reason for it, right? And so, have him ask me to do the Bible study, I was like, dude, yeah, I'm all in. Go for it. And I feel like there's definitely going to be, I don't know what the next step is. I don't know what the future holds.
Well,
I know that
you're young still.
Yeah.
Out of all this experience, you still have a lot of life ahead. So there's more stories to be told, and there's a whole nother. Exactly. There's chapters being written, as we continue.
A book will be written one day.
No, it should be, and I it's so heartwarming to see this almost full circle moment. It's not quite there yet. I guess there's still that part of the chapter, but to see you come back around to that and be able to again let go of the things that. You thought that's maybe who you were. You thought it was a peak, right? At some point, you thought, "Oh yeah, I'm living up. I'm living it up. This is but to know and to be able to let it go and to have no attachment to that, to really dive in now to what's next, right? Where is this taking me?
And the crazy thing is, it's scary. I'm not gonna lie, it's still scary at times because as a house flipper, there's zero money coming in for very many months, especially when nothing's selling and the market's slow, right? But bills don't stop, right? And then we're investing. I'm opening a new business with me and Mike are opening 2 new different businesses, and there's investment that's required with that. And so trying to balance all of that and trying to do things like we talked about this morning, morally and ethically, and not messing people over, and trying to balance it all. I'm trying to get in the best shape of my life right now, and it's just so exciting. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not perfect. I do worry sometimes, but I am so excited to see what's next, and because I know something big is out there, and I know it's gonna have to do with giving back to people. So Mike and I are starting an education business, and I think that's part of it, right? Because you get to help them with their journeys and what they're doing, with all the experience that I have, being able to pass that on to other people. But then I'm pretty sure it'll open up some kind of door to some sort of ministry later on, and like I said, we talked about this morning in Bible study. It's not even about bringing Bible to work and okay, we're going to pound this into you, but just living your life in a certain manner, in a certain way that people notice something's different. People notice hey, and I have little things, even last night, some guy texted me and was like, hey, do you mind, I've got a big online presence, do you mind posting, how much would it cost you to do paid advertising for our nightclub? And I was like, dude, I really, really am flattered and appreciate that you even asked me that, but I'm out of that business, and I'm really utilizing my social media for my real estate. And then he said, okay, yeah, I really respect that, whatever, but come on out and I'll give you the first bottle on me. I was like, dude, also I stopped drinking 2 years ago, and I'm really connected to my faith, and it's just not my thing anymore, but again, I really appreciate it. So just being nice, turning down a nice way, and he's like, man, I really respect that about you, and da-da-da. And so, a little seed like that, I don't know where that goes, I don't know what's going to get out of that. And even with Mike, I took Mike to church a couple years ago. He's been going, he's taken many people. I know a guy, this is an attribute to Mike. He took another guy who was one of my tenants. I didn't even know the guys. Mike was representing me as a realtor. I didn't even know the guy. Mike, was doing the whole deal. And he invited him to CBC. And Mike actually took his call one night. I don't know how late it was, whatever. But the guy was about to kill himself. And he had lost everything, his job. They were getting kicked out of my house that I was in. I didn't know anything about the situation. And his wife's about to divorce him. And he was just going through it. And, Mike was there and told him, hey, no, we'll get you out of this. We'll figure it out. And sure enough, he's now doing wholesaling. I think Charles actually mentored him for a little while. Oh, nice. Johnny Lopez, he was at the what's it called, Bible study a couple weeks ago. And so, just little seeds. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got to be the preacher knocking on doors and all this stuff, but just living the right way and doing the right things and treating people the right way and being that example, being that light.
Light.
That's it. Being the light in a very, very dark world. And so nowhere near perfect, but we talked about this morning. I cut out alcohol. I'm really trying not to curse. I'm very, very close to
Everything's a work in progress,
very
brother.
close to accomplishing that goal. I'm doing okay. But just every day trying to now set the standard for myself of what what good looks like and who I want to be, and really having a good grasp on life. Now, my life goal, as we just talked about from 11, was to be successful and to do things and build things, and now it's more so of how do I be better as a person, right? I still have the ambition. I still want to, we're still working on building very big businesses, and that'll come, and that'll be fine and everything. But my focus, I have had probably 10 people ask me over the last year, now that you're at a desire, like, what are your goals? What somebody asked me yesterday, what's your big goal? It has nothing to do with work. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do, like, I really wanted to, like, do good, and I want to flip 50 houses, and, like, cool, and all this stuff, and educate a bunch of people. But my goal literally has nothing to do with that. How can I be the best son? How can I be the best brother? How can I be the best spouse? How can I be, eventually the best dad? And so that's really what my focus on is now. And it's, for the first time in my life, not based around numbers and targets and whatever. Yeah. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes. And
that's awesome, man. Yeah. What an amazing story.
Seriously. And like you said, a million lives in this.
So many lessons in here, so much value. And, for me, just seeing it and listening to it, it's just, it just shows how God allows us to go through life in these journeys and these experiences, to see the ups, the downs, and the wins, the losses, the pain, all that good stuff.
I just had this come to my mind right now. So this morning we were reading in the Bible study in Exodus about how God still allowed them to go to the promise. I didn't even put this together this morning. We were talking about it. He still allowed them to go to the promised land, but he said it'll be without my presence, and it will be on your own, and it will be much harder. And so, I think that's this story is a very good example of you can still reach high places, and you can still do things. You can still go to the promised land. I got the promised land that I was looking for, but it wasn't with God. He was obviously there watching over and protecting, but I wasn't doing it with. I wasn't inviting him to come with me, right? He was still there, but I wasn't, engaging on my part,
which made you feel unfulfilled, right? And you have that void at the end. Which now we've turned the page, and you're searching for something better.
That's right. That's right.
That relationship, which is important, which also contributes to your goal of being, the best man that you can possibly be for those
being intentional, making sure I say, hey, Dad, we're playing golf once a month, whereas I would always tell him no. He would ask me over and over and over again, come play in this tournament. I would be no. So now being very intentional, I've got a 14-year-old sister going to volleyball games whenever they're here, going to do that kind of stuff rather than just, we got to work, we got to hit goals and targets. Goals and targets are there all the time. They're not going nowhere.
Those aren't going nowhere.
There's a place for that, all right? We'll get there. We'll cross that bridge when it's time. Right. That's awesome. So as we wrap it up, what would be...
We definitely went over.
Don't worry about it. Okay. What would be one, some advice that you would give to the younger you or anybody that's listening, that's on this journey, try to figure it out? Like, what would be your best advice with everything that that you've been through now? What would be your best advice to the younger Skylar?
Go study what people did before the internet, because, man, I feel like everybody's like you said, the attention spans are just cooked. Nobody can pay attention to anything. It's just going back to first principles, right? The basic stuff that unfortunately doesn't get taught nowadays. And I wish I had a good reference. I don't have any good books to reference. I'm not a big reader, actually, believe it or not.
Don't worry about it. Your life's a book.
But just basics, like we talked about from the very beginning. Do what you say you're going to do. Be on time. Go above and beyond, even when it's unexpected, because it will compound and come back to you. Generally being a good person. If you're not in a good Bible-based church, which that's the key, is the Bible-based part, because there are a lot of churches that, are not very Bible-based, the whole prosperity gospel, and, I don't have anything against people that do that, but, being in a good Bible-based church is going to lead you the right way, and so that would be really my find something you like to do, have a good drive, have a good work ethic, don't pay attention to what other people say, what other people think you should do, find out who you really are, what you really like, and run with that, and make sure that you do it the right way. Bring God on your side. It will be.
Amen to that.
It'll save you. Not to put a damper on the end of it, but I've probably reversed my life by 10 years by about a year's worth of bad decisions, right? It'll take me a long time to pay off different debts and to do other different things that I got into. And so save yourself the unnecessary headache and do things the right way and don't get lost. And once you find who you are, I knew who I was very, very, very well. Yeah. And, it's easy to fall off track. And so don't fall off track. Stay the course and stay true to who you are.
Amen to that. And then one last thing, if you wanted to plug yourself in, anybody wants to find you, is in your coaching, your classes that you're going to be offering soon.
You can find me on any social. They're all the same. Skylar, Skylar B, like boy, Moon, Moon. Skylar B Moon on all socials. And if you want to learn how to invest in real estate, whether it's going to be fixing and flipping, wholesaling, subject to creative finance, buy and hold, you can find us at hustleacademy.com.
Boom.
Love it.
Thank
you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother. Thank you
this is great.
For joining us. And any of you who are watching, find value in this, please share it and with anybody that you think would benefit from it. So thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Let's get it.
Boom.
That was awesome.